You think your first hire should be an editor? You're wrong, and this mistake may cost you thousands of dollars. And I want to talk about an opposite way to structure your minimal viable team, MVT. Who should be your specific new first hire? It's actually administrative assistant. And before you start arguing with me, let me explain why. Do you recall this framework? This is essentially the octopus framework that Marquise Brownlee presented years ago now, and you'll have to probably go a couple more years on my channel to find the video where I specifically talk about it. But the whole idea of this presentation is essentially talking about how your team can be composed of either creative or the business side of things, right? You can have obviously your producers, your editors, writers, kind of like directors of photography, on-camera talent, whether it's yourself or someone else you hire. Or you can have business folks like accountants, agents, assistants, distributors, managers, right? Like people who support you on the back end. My argument on why someone like an administrative assistant should be your first hire is because if you look at it from the perspective of a young creator, or maybe, a relatively young, aspiring creator who just started the career, very likely things that you learn to do pretty well are all of these items, right? Because today you're your own producer, editor, writer, you shoot on camera on your own, and you're your own talent. A lot of these kind of like, skills can be absolutely learned by you. It can even be something that you're aspiring to learn over time. But from the perspective of ease of hiring, things on the right are actually a lot easier to hire for because there's so many more professionals across so many more different industries who know how to do all of this. A lot of these things are very specific to our kind of like video production industry, and also very specific to the taste and the style preferences that you have as a creator. Think about, first of all, the cost, which is one of the primary concerns for the creators. In the current economic environment where, AdSense is not as high as it used to be. Brand deals are not as high and not as frequent as they used to be. Your viewers are not necessarily in a position to afford supporting you consistently, whether it's a membership website or maybe it's constantly buying products from you. So you have to be very price conscious. And the thing about the editors, good editors will run you a few $100 to $1,000 per video for the edit. And depending on how obviously frequently you make those edits, even if it's say $250 per video, which is going to be very hard to find a solid editor at that price point, and you're making weekly videos like I am, you're already $1,000 in every single month without even seeing any penny from that particular investment, because of the fact that you still have to wait for the AdSense, still have to wait for the check, you still have to find the brand deals and so on and so forth. From that perspective, you then compare it to someone like administrative assistant there are plenty of services today where you can find virtual assistants who lives remote anywhere in the world, who probably cost you about $10 to $20 an hour, and who will be very much engaged with you from day one. Time consideration is one of those big aspects of this entire process. And coming back to my point about the style preferences, is that say you found an editor and say they're very skilled in one specific style. Over the course of time, while you were growing your creator brand, you probably developed certain style preferences on how you want your videos to be edited. And now you have to essentially, following best practices of those who hired editors before, sit down, so to speak, side by side, whether virtually or physically, with the new hire who's an editor, and start working on videos together, because you want to kind of like create a collaborative process to which the editor will learn how to apply kind of like your vision and your style preferences to their skill set and their preferences, so that you can create this interesting new project or product, I guess, in the form of your videos. From that perspective alone, you'd probably spend the next month to 2 months going and training and really understanding, hey, can I actually work with this editor long term? Compared again from the time perspective and training perspective to the admin work, if say one of the first tasks for them is to manage your calendar because they need to start helping you, say, schedule videos and make sure if you're shooting somewhere outside and remote, they help you plan, right? Like, hey, on this day you need to do these things. Maybe you need to rent a car. Maybe you need to rent a hotel. Maybe you do some other things depending on your genre. Maybe you need to go draft a note and send a note to, say, a restaurant. Maybe you're a creator who shoots and records how people work in the restaurants, and someone needs to go sit down and do the outreach on your behalf, right? Those things you can explain and train, especially if they're very base levels, like, hey, monitor my inbox for these specific things today, and the person will be live doing that job tomorrow. So there's a ton of benefit and time consideration to how you can potentially achieve and reach the value first. The other good news is that from the training perspective, again, say you work with an editor, you kind of like it, but you will realize, you know what, this is not the right person. And a month or 2 months in, after already spending money and maybe not getting the exact videos that you wanted, plus spending a lot more time on producing those videos, you realize that you need to go find a new editor, and you kind of like go and pick up, and you have to do that entire process again. You have to again work with them side by side, again spend a month to 2 months kind of like working in parallel, understanding each other's styles and preferences until you find that combined vision. With the admin, say you work with someone for a week, you kind of like them, but again, you're like, not necessarily exactly the person. Switching to the next person is as easy, because it's actually going to be easier, in my opinion, because especially if you're hiring an assistant for the first time, on the first try, you will develop certain documentation and certain processes and emails, instructions of like, hey, do these things, don't do these things, here's what I need you to do, here's what I need you to follow up on. You can then take on the new admin a week later, pass them along all the same notes, and get them going as fast as the prior admin within probably like a couple of days at most. But realistically, I think within 24 hours, depending on how complex the task is, they can be out there doing that kind of work for you. When it comes to the scope of work itself, I think it's pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, you can think of it in a couple of ways. One, just from the perspective of coming back to that octopus structure and thinking about, okay, what kind of work can you continue to do at the highest level? And it's very likely going to be a lot of creative stuff. But within the creative space, are there some repeatable items that you can pass on to a new person? Maybe it's things like the uploading process, right? You will be the one to create the video, to create an export, create the thumbnails, but then you can pass it on to this person. This person will go through the process of uploading the video onto the website, making sure all the tags are there, making sure the description is correct, making sure they apply the right thumbnail, right packaging. They can start responding to comments as the video goes live. They can be engaging with other social media pages that potentially might be reaching out to you because of the fact that you did such an amazing job in the video, or they can be representing your social media page. And once, say, your video goes live, they go on your Instagram, they go on your TikTok, repost the clips that you created them. You can teach them, potentially even cut some of the clips, because there's so much software that can be used on the cell phone. And people with being so engaged with the social media from a young age will very much quickly adapt to the process of, hey, cut a couple of these clips and apply this template, post them on Instagram, post them on TikTok, post them on LinkedIn, depending on what kind of creator you are. They can be out there on Twitter posting the link and promoting it, right? Like, you can give them a set of kind of like a checklist, say, post launch of the video checklist, do these 5 things. So go here, post here, respond to the comment, tag this person, tag that person, right? You can give them the list, and every time you upload the video, you can go focus on the next project while they're kind of like helping you distribute the current project that you just launched. Another beautiful part about it, now if you're thinking about outside of just the scope, you can think about it as a way of like, what drains you of energy versus what gives you energy. And very likely things that got you into video production in the first place are the things that are driving the energy, right? So again, the creative process, where the admin side of things, again, maybe you have to, depending on the type of videos you make, reach out to a bunch of brands or reach out to potential like targets and talk to them and set up schedules, maybe set up the interviews, things of that nature, figure out the scheduling and make sure that the schedules will work for both of you. Again, reaching out to different vendors if you're working with the vendors and you want to do some behind the scenes for a specific type of profession. All of that stuff can be done off of your inbox by this individual on your behalf. And this is the kind of work that very frequently for anyone drains the energy. I hate doing emails, right? And I always fall behind on them. And that's one of those things that's easy, again, to outsource, easy to ensure this person manages it. And you can even set up the process where they, for example, create summaries in AI for you, right? They can go in and say like, hey, grab a few of these emails. Maybe it's a set of newsletters. Grab these newsletters, put them in this AI tool, give me the summary, or send it to me to my special other inbox where I can read them, and I'm gonna stay on top of like the news in my industry. Things that again drain your energy or take a lot of time on the back and forth and the very manual are great places where that administrative person can start. And if you will start looking at like in in sum of total time saved between all of those tasks and the fact that you get a lot more energy from spending more time on the tasks that are actually giving you that kind of energy, you'll realize you're a lot more productive. And maybe you're, say, if the plan was to hire an editor, maybe your edits start getting a lot better because now you actually spend less time doing admin work, so you have more time to edit. Or because you have more energy, your edits just like flow a little bit better. You have more energy to think it through, maybe even go take a couple of courses, study editing, and kind of like get better at it. Totally understand the desire and kind of like this, thinking from a couple of years back where, hey, the first hire should be an editor so you can save time on editing, you can do all this other stuff, right, with your creator business. But in reality, if you look across the board today, and as I said, from the perspective of the cost, from the perspective of the time to train and get them kind of like going and being independent, time to actually ensure the combined product gives you the results that you want, like there is a lot going on over there. There's a lot of stress, a lot of risk, and there's a lot of money spent continuously. Coming back to any kind of like admin work, especially if you're using virtual admins, you can wind them up and down. You can say, hey, this week there's a lot of heavy admin work, so I'm gonna spend a lot of time and maybe I'm gonna need you for 4 hours every day throughout the entire week. And say if you're paying at the higher level of like $20, so it's $80 per day. So for entire week, say if it's a 5-day working week, so you're gonna spend like $400. But those $400 are not fixed like with an editor. You can say, okay, next week, you know what, we've tackled all the admin stuff. Now I'm in the process of actually going on locations that administrator helped me secure, doing those interviews that administrator helped me schedule, going kind of like through the process of waiting for the feedback from some of the brands that I'm trying to work with. So I don't need them this week. So I'm gonna kind of like deactivate. I'm gonna turn them off for now. I'm gonna go do my thing, not spend $400 this week, shoot all those projects, record, do those things. Maybe the next week I'm still working through the edits. I don't need any admin work kind of thing. Or maybe you spend a couple of hours and say, spend $20-$40. And then the following week, closer to the posting time, you're like, okay, now I need to reactivate the admin because I want to make sure they help me with all the post-launch activities. And that week again, you spend, say, $400, but they're very heavy in it. They help ensure early on success for your video by helping promote it across all the social media networks. If there's some interesting feedback, they respond to comments, so your audience feels the engagement. And then from the perspective of any kind of like follow-up work or maybe some interesting inquiries, they're going to be the ones in your inbox catching them while you're already shifting your mind towards the next project that you're about to launch, right? So again, there are a lot of benefits, and trust me, with someone who switched completely to this style of videos for the time being, because both the time commitment and some of the other things kind of like in my day-to-day life, but also because I realized, for me, at least for my style of content, editing does not make as big of a difference. I'm sure it can make tremendous step difference for the talking head kind of video like this, but I just realized is that at this point in time, it's just not as important as some of the other things I can accomplish, right? And so what I realize now by doing this for almost a year is that, hey, this is actually a much more I get a lot more energy from it, right? Like from not sitting editing until like 1, 2 a.m. every day. And it's kind of like realizing the value that I gain from other activities I do around the video production that do not necessarily overcomplicate my edit. Again, can it make my video better? Can it shift it to bigger audiences? Can it make it more engaging? Absolutely, right? But this is one of those decisions I made, and I see a lot of positives from this process. So from your perspective, you're very likely a way better editor already than me. You might have your different opinion, but even if you remain at the same level, but then as I said, you will go and shift kind of like your priorities. You'll get a lot of that time and energy back from doing those admin tasks. You spend a little bit of money into the administrative work and then go and invest that newfound energy, newfound time in other creative projects. You might get to the point and accelerate the point where you're making a little bit more money. You can now potentially afford both the admin and the editor. Or maybe you realize like, hey, I can handle my edits as well. And there's like new AI tools out there that help me speed up the editing process. And I can now go and invest time and energy in some other stuff. Or what might also be a very preferable scenario in the current economic environment, you'll just keep your cash burn low, but at the same time, again, you avoid the creator burnout because you have that person to take away those energy draining tasks away from your table. And assuming I convinced you as to where you can find this kind of like potential admins. First of all, you can just Google for the virtual admins, and I promise you there's going to be plenty of services out there that offer you this kind of like very flexible nature of the virtual assistants. Upwork, Fiverr, LinkedIn will have plenty of those folks out there, especially, and that's maybe where you can turn positive the unfortunate situation with all the latest layoffs and a lot of actual admin roles being affected. I promise you'll find very skilled, very smart admin talent out there who'll be willing to work with you. And a lot of them might actually even be stateside, so they'll be on the same time zones with you. Or again, if they're in a different time zone, they'll be willing to work with you on your time zone. So from that perspective, there's so many potential opportunities for you to find that talent, experiment with it. And as I said, cost of switch is not that high. Cost to go take them on for a week or two and experiment with the type of work is also not that high. So invest in yourself. Invest in yourself, invest in gaining your time back, and invest in making sure you can get more of those energy draining tasks off your table and more of those exciting projects that you will take on to help expand your creator brand back on your schedule. I hope this was useful. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, if you agree or disagree with this approach, and I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.